Welcome back. How did you do with the random game? Were you able to solve it? Let's give it a try here. Now, I'm just going to use the test.py. Actually, let's just rename it, just so it's not confusing. I'm going to rename it to random game.py. All right. Now, in here, I want to be able to, first of all, let's think about what we need. So the first thing we need is to generate a number 1 through 10. Then what we need to do next is to get an input from user, right? And then we want to do some sort of an input check. So let's say check that input is a number 1 through 10. And then check if number is the right guess. Otherwise, ask again. So that seems like a good program that we can write. So how can we do this? Well, the first ask is to generate a number 1 to 10. I know that I'm definitely going to want to import the random library from here, and specifically the rand int. So I can just say from random import rand int, which we've seen. And here I can generate the numbers. So let's call it the answer is going to be rand int from 1 to 10. So this is going to be our machine generated random number that we need to try and guess. Next is we have to get the input from the user. So how can we do this? Well, simple, right? We can get a guess as input from the user, and we get the prompt. So we'll say, guess a number 1 through 10. All right, so that's looking good. What about check that input that it's a number 1 to 10? So we have to do a bit of checking here. Now, because we want to keep looping while the user is guessing, I'm going to do a while true loop that we have to make sure we break out of so we don't have an infinite loop. And in the first part of the while loop, I want to check what the user inputs. So I'm going to say if guess. Well, we know right away that the input is going to give us a string. So we have to make sure we convert this into an int first. So let's do that. I'm going to say if int guess is greater than 1 and int guess is less than 11. So in our case, let's do 0 here because we want to make sure that if it's 1, it's still good. If it's 10, it's still good. In that case, well, we can actually try and check if it's the right guess. Now, what happens if this fails? What if the user enters a string that can't be turned into an int? For example, if I go to my terminal here and I just turn on the Python interpreter and say int and then just give it some gibberish, I get a value error. Invalid literal for int with base 10. I have no idea what you're trying to do. So we can check for a value error here. So what I'm going to say is to try this bit of code. And for now, we'll just pass in here. And if for some reason it doesn't pass, and we'll check for value error, then I'm going to print, please enter a number. Awesome. So we're checking that the input is a number 1 to 10. So for now, just to make sure that this is working, let's just do this. Let's break out of this loop or print all good in here and break out of this loop, considering that right now we're entering a number 1 to 10. And let's just make this a little bit smaller just so you can see it better. There you go. And for here, we'll just do continue because we'll just keep looping until we get the right answer. So again, we're importing randint, generating some random number, 1 to 10. We're getting the guess from the user, and then we want to check that the input is a number 1 to 10. So I have a loop that I'm going to keep running, and I'm going to ask, is the number 0 to 11? If it is, then we're all good. If for some reason we get a value error, then we're going to say, hey, please enter a number. So let's just test that out. I'm going to go to my terminal, or actually we can just run this here. Let's run it. All right, guess a number 1 to 10. 5. And I get all good. Like, I think we need a couple of spaces here. It looks a little weird. So let's just say, guess a number 1 to 10 and give some spaces. Let's run that again. There you go. And I've actually already noticed a bug that we need to fix. If, let's say, I enter gibberish. Oh boy. I get, please enter a number, please enter a number. And we need to stop this because it's going to get destroyed. All right, so what happened here? Well, we didn't break out of this loop. We continued, and we just kept going while true, while true, while true. And we kept getting a value error. So you have to be careful here. Remember, when we continue, it goes back to the try block or back to the while loop, and it's going to try this again. But we're not asking for the input or a new input again. This is going to fail, and then another value error happens. And then this is going to fail, another value error happens. So we need to put the guess inside here, right? Inside of the try block. So now if I run this, all right, let's guess a number. Let's give gibberish. I get, hey, please enter a number. All right, we'll enter a number. We'll enter, how about 0? Nope, this doesn't work. It's going to keep asking me because, well, the number that we entered, it's less than 1 to 10, but it's a wrong answer. We could check is wrong. You know what? Let's do that. Let's say else. We'll say, hey, bozo, I said 1 through 10. That'll be a fun one. All right, let's run this. Let's do 0. Hey, bozo, I said 1 to 10. All right. Let's do 5. Hey, I guess the number 1 to 10. Everything's good. All good. All right. So now what I'm going to do is just see if the guess matches whatever the answer right here is. Now, before I do that, you see here how the PyCharm IDE gives me a little hint, a yellow line that says, hey, this simplified chain comparison can actually be improved. It's why IDEs are so powerful. And here I can actually simplify this. I can say if int guess is higher than 0 and less than 11, then do this. And look at that. I just simplified my code, and the editor gave me a nice hint. Okay, let's go through here. So instead of saying print all good, let's say if this is the case, we're going to have another conditional and say if the int guess equals to the answer, we'll print you're a genius. And we'll break out of that. Now, notice here how we're doing int guess a couple of times. Maybe a better way of doing it is to just do an int here so we don't repeat ourselves and run the same function over and over. And just have guess like this. So again, we're cleaning up our code, making it read more like English. That's nice. And now if we run this, guess a number, let's say 5. No, that's not right. Let's do 6. What about 7, 8, 9? This guy's a tough cookie. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, come on. Is it 10? Wow. We are definitely not geniuses because we just, well, tried 10 times. But this looks like it's working. Let's make sure that we're actually working this properly by cheating a little bit. I'm going to actually print out here the answer. So I see what the answer is before I type it in. Let's do that actually right here. If I click run, all right, the number is 4. If I type in 4, all right, now I'm a genius. First try. All right, we're cheating, but it looks like this is working. That's pretty cool. Now, the last part here is that up until now, I've used the input, but I said I wanted to run it in a terminal. And I want to be able to actually, well, give it parameters, right? We give it the start parameter and the end parameter of randint. So we can make the game as hard as we want. So that's pretty simple. We have the import sys here. And we simply say sys.argv. The first parameter, remember the first one's going to be the file name. And then the third parameter. And that's going to be the numbers that we're giving it. So let's use this file now. Let's copy the code. And just for this example, because it's simpler, we'll just add it to our Sublime text file. Oh, and looks like we have to do sys.argv here as well. Make sure we don't forget that. So let's fix that as well. Like that. That's better. And if we run this, not int, because remember the parameters that we're going to give it are going to be turned into strings. So we just have to make sure that we convert this into an int, like this. Now if we just copy this, run this over here, let's run it again. So I'm pressing up here because it remembers my previous command. Let's give that a go. Guess a number, 1 or 2, let's go with 1. There you go. I am a genius. And our program is now working. Our guessing game is now working. Very, very cool. If you got this, good job. If you didn't, well, you can just take a look at my code and hopefully see where you went wrong. But good job getting this far. I'll see you in the next one.